The aircraft arrived at the facility 23 hours after the final landing. Witnesses reported seeing shadows moving inside the fuselage during transport. One driver refused to continue. Another took his place and delivered the wreckage in complete silence, eyes fixed on the road, hands trembling on the wheel. James Holloway had worked in aircraft disposal for 19 years. He'd seen burned cockpits, shredded wings, tail sections twisted into impossible shapes. He thought he'd seen everything. What happened during the cremation of Flight 747 would prove him wrong in ways that still keep him awake, staring at his bedroom ceiling, counting the hours until dawn. Before we go deeper, make sure to subscribe now. This channel exposes aviation mysteries and forbidden reports the industry tries to hide. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next investigation. The aircraft had been retired after a series of mechanical failures that couldn't be explained. 3 emergency landings in 2 months, hydraulic systems failing mid-flight, electrical surges that fried backup circuits. Pilots reported hearing voices through the intercom when no one was transmitting. Cabin crew found seats soaking wet in rows where no passengers had spilled anything. The airline decided disposal was cheaper than investigation. Holloway's team prepared the aircraft for thermal destruction on a Tuesday morning in March. The facility sat 30 miles outside Phoenix, surrounded by desert scrub and silence. No neighbors, no witnesses, just heat, sand, and the occasional buzzard circling overhead. The cremation furnace could reach temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to reduce an entire commercial aircraft to ash and twisted metal in roughly 8 hours. They'd stripped the plane of everything valuable first: avionics, wiring, hydraulic fluid, seats, carpeting. Standard procedure. What remained was an empty aluminum shell with rows of mounting brackets where seats had been, exposed rigging where panels had covered the walls, and the overwhelming smell of jet fuel that never fully leaves an aircraft, no matter how thoroughly you drain the tanks. Holloway walked through the cabin one final time before cremation. His boots echoed on bare metal. Sunlight streamed through the windows, creating long shadows that stretched across the floor. He noticed something odd. The emergency exit door in row 19 was warm to the touch. Not sun-warm, body-warm, like someone had been leaning against it moments before. He checked the temperature gauge clipped to his belt. 74 degrees inside the cabin. The door registered 98.6 degrees, exactly human body temperature. He made a note in his inspection log, but didn't think much of it. Metal does strange things in desert heat. The cremation process began at 11:47 in the morning. Holloway and 3 other technicians used industrial winches to position the aircraft inside the massive furnace chamber. The opening looked like a cave mouth, 20 feet tall and 30 feet wide, lined with refractory bricks designed to withstand extreme temperatures without cracking. They secured the fuselage, retreated to the control room, and initiated the burn sequence. Temperature climbed steadily. 300 degrees, 500, 800. The aluminum skin began to buckle and warp, creating groaning sounds that echoed through the facility. At 1,000 degrees, paint started vaporizing, filling the chamber with toxic smoke that extraction fans pulled away and filtered. Everything proceeded normally for the first 43 minutes. Then Holloway saw movement through the observation window. The window was 8 inches of heat-resistant glass set into the control room wall. It offered a clear view of the furnace interior, though at high temperatures everything became obscured by waves of superheated air that distorted vision like looking through water. Holloway was monitoring temperature readings when something crossed his peripheral vision, a shape, moving inside the burning aircraft. He looked up sharply. The fuselage glowed orange-red, metal sagging like melting wax. Flames rolled across every surface. Nothing could survive in there. Nothing. Yet he saw it again. A silhouette moving past one of the windows. Then another, and another. Marcus Chen, the junior technician monitoring emissions, noticed Holloway's expression. "What's wrong? Do you see that?" Holloway pointed at the observation window. Chen squinted through the glass. "See what? Just fire and smoke, man." But Holloway saw them clearly now, figures moving through the cabin, walking down the aisle, sitting in seats that no longer existed. He counted 7 distinct shapes, then 12. Then, too many to count. They moved with purpose, some standing, others gesturing, all of them engulfed in flames that should have reduced them to ash in seconds. "Cut the temperature," Holloway said quietly. "What? We're only halfway through the burn cycle." "Cut the goddamn temperature now." Chen's hand hovered over the emergency shutdown. "Boss, if we interrupt the cycle, we'll have to restart from scratch. That's $14,000 in wasted fuel," and Holloway grabbed Chen's shoulder hard enough to make him wince. "There are people in there." The control room went silent, except for the roar of flames coming through the ventilation system. Sarah Klein, the safety officer, stepped closer to the observation window. She was a woman who'd worked explosives disposal in the Air Force, someone who didn't rattle easily. Her face went pale. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I see them too." Chen looked again, pressing his face close to the glass. For several seconds, he saw nothing but fire and distorted air. Then his eyes adjusted to the movement, and he stumbled backward, knocking over his chair. "That's impossible! We stripped that plane. There's nobody in there. There can't be." But they could all see them now. Passengers seated in rows, flight attendants moving through the aisle, a pilot visible through the cockpit door. All of them burning, all of them moving as if nothing was wrong. Some appeared to be talking to each other, mouths opening and closing, though no sound reached the control room except the furnace roar. Holloway hit the emergency shutdown. Fuel valves closed. Flames began to diminish. Temperature started dropping, though at this stage the metal itself was so hot it would continue radiating intense heat for hours. The figures didn't fade with the flames. If anything, they became more distinct as smoke cleared. "Call emergency services," Holloway said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "And get everyone out of this building right now." Sarah was already on her radio. "Phoenix Fire, this is Desert Reclamation Facility. We have—" She paused, struggling to find words that wouldn't make her sound insane. "We have a situation in the cremation chamber. Possible human presence in an active burn zone." The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Repeat that? Did you say human presence?" "Affirmative. Multiple individuals visible inside the chamber." "How did they get inside an active furnace?" Sarah looked at Holloway. He shook his head slowly. She keyed the radio again. "Unknown. Just get here fast." The temperature had dropped to 900 degrees. The aircraft structure sagged further, wings folding inward like a dying bird. The figures remained. One of them walked directly toward the observation window. It was a woman, or had been. Her features were obscured by flames and heat distortion, but her movement was unmistakably human, purposeful. She raised one hand and placed it against the inside of a window that no longer existed, that had melted into slag minutes ago. Her palm pressed against empty air. Then she looked directly at Holloway. Her eyes were black voids in a burning face. Her mouth opened wide, wider than should be possible, and though no sound penetrated the control room, Holloway heard screaming, not with his ears, somewhere deeper, in his chest, his bones, the same way you feel thunder before you hear it. He staggered backward, his vision narrowing to a tunnel. The screaming filled his head, dozens of voices layered over each other, all of them begging, pleading, demanding to be heard. He tried to speak but couldn't remember how, tried to breathe but his lungs wouldn't cooperate. The control room tilted sideways. Sarah caught him before he hit the floor. "James, stay with me." His eyes rolled back. Marcus was shouting something about calling an ambulance. The last thing Holloway saw before consciousness left him was the burning woman still pressing her hand against nothing, still screaming in silence, and behind her, dozens more passengers rising from seats that existed only in memory or nightmare or whatever thin place separates the living from the dead. He woke up 37 minutes later in the back of an ambulance. Paramedics were checking his vitals. His blood pressure was dangerously elevated, heart rate 143 beats per minute. He was soaked in sweat despite the air conditioning. A paramedic shone a light in his eyes, checking pupil response. "Can you tell me your name, sir?" "James Holloway." "What happened to the aircraft?" "You fainted. Possible heat stroke. We're taking you to—" "What happened to the aircraft?" He grabbed the paramedic's wrist. "Did they get them out?" The paramedic exchanged glances with her partner. "Sir, there was nobody in the aircraft. Fire department cleared the chamber. They found no human remains, no signs anyone had been inside." Holloway sat up despite protests, pushing aside the oxygen mask. Through the ambulance's rear windows, he could see the facility. Fire trucks surrounded the building. Firefighters in full gear stood in groups, talking, gesturing. Nobody looked panicked. Nobody looked like they'd just discovered burning people inside a furnace. Sarah appeared at the ambulance door. Her face was drawn, aged 10 years in the last hour. "How are you feeling? Tell me what they found." She climbed into the ambulance, waved the paramedics back, lowered her voice. "Nothing. The chamber's empty except for the wreckage. They did a full sweep with thermal cameras. No bodies, no remains, nothing biological at all. We all saw them, Sarah. You, me, Marcus. We all saw people burning in there. I know what I saw, but there's no evidence anyone was ever inside." "The fire chief thinks we hallucinated from smoke inhalation or heat exposure." She leaned closer. "Marcus is saying he doesn't remember seeing anything. He's changed his story 3 times in the last 20 minutes. Now he's claiming it was just shadows and smoke." Holloway looked past her toward the facility. "And you? What's your official statement going to say?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I'm former military, James. I know what happens to people who report things that don't fit the narrative. Career over. Credibility destroyed. Labeled unstable." She met his eyes. "But I also know what I saw. Those were people, burning people, moving like they were still alive." The paramedics insisted on taking Holloway to the hospital for evaluation. He spent 4 hours in the emergency room undergoing tests. CT scans showed no brain abnormalities. Blood work came back normal. No signs of carbon monoxide poisoning. No neurological damage. The attending physician diagnosed acute stress reaction and prescribed rest. Holloway returned to the facility the next day. The cremation had been completed overnight. Temperature gradually increased again until the aircraft was reduced to ash and scrap metal. The chamber had been cleaned. Fresh refractory bricks replaced any that had cracked. It looked like nothing unusual had happened. But the observation window had been replaced too. The old one sat in the disposal yard, waiting to be hauled away. Holloway examined it closely. The inner surface, the side that faced the furnace, bore dozens of handprints. Small ones, large ones, children's handprints. All of them burned into the glass at temperatures that should have vaporized organic material instantly. He photographed them with his phone before anyone noticed. Then he went to his supervisor's office. Harold Brennan had run the facility for 12 years. He'd seen Holloway's incident report, seen Sarah's report, seen Marcus's 3 different versions. Brennan said before Holloway could speak, "Paid leave. See a counselor. Get your head straight. We need to investigate what happened. Those handprints on the observation window have already been documented and sent to corporate. They're calling it residue from cleaning chemicals reacting with extreme heat. Nothing supernatural, nothing unexplained." Brennan leaned back in his chair. "James, you're a good employee. 19 years of solid work. Don't throw that away by pushing a narrative that makes you sound unstable. I know what I saw, and I believe you believe that, which is why you're taking time off. If you come back still talking about burning ghosts, I'll have to let you go, for your own safety and the facility's liability. Do you understand?" Holloway understood. Shut up or lose everything. That's how these things worked. Keep your head down, accept the official explanation. Forget what happened. Move on. He couldn't forget. During his forced leave, he researched Flight 747's history. The aircraft had been in service for 23 years before retirement. It had transported an estimated 4 million passengers during its operational life. But what caught Holloway's attention was a pattern in the flight logs. 17 passengers had died aboard that aircraft over the years. Not crashes, medical emergencies, heart attacks, strokes, one suicide in the lavatory. Two women went into premature labor at 30,000 feet and neither baby survived. An elderly man choked on his meal and couldn't be revived, despite crew efforts. 17 deaths across 23 years wasn't unusual for a commercial aircraft. People die, it happens. But Holloway noticed something else. After each death, the aircraft experienced unexplained technical failures within 72 hours. Electrical problems, hydraulic issues, navigation instruments malfunctioning. The same pattern that eventually led to the plane's retirement. He contacted a friend who worked in aviation accident investigation. Over drinks at a quiet bar, Holloway described what he'd witnessed. His friend listened without interrupting, nursing a bourbon, expression carefully neutral. "You're not the first person to report something like this," his friend finally said. "What do you mean?" "Aircraft disposal facilities all over the world have documented similar incidents. Not many, maybe 1 or 2 per year globally, but consistent enough that there's an unofficial protocol. Document what you can, submit the report, let corporate bury it, move on. Because if you push too hard, ask too many questions, suddenly your security clearance gets revoked, or you fail a psych eval, or your position gets eliminated due to budget cuts. They're covering it up? They're managing it. There's a difference. Aviation is built on public confidence. You can't have people afraid to fly because decommissioned aircraft are supposedly haunted. It's bad for business. So when something inexplicable happens, the official explanation is always mechanical, chemical, environmental, never supernatural, never unexplained. Holloway finished his drink. Those were real people in that furnace, real passengers. I saw their faces. Maybe they were. Or maybe the aircraft itself retains some kind of imprint, energy, memory. I don't know the right word for it. But you're not crazy, and you're not alone in seeing it. His friend signaled for another round. My advice? Take the payoff they'll eventually offer you, sign the non-disclosure agreement, start fresh somewhere else. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be survived. Holloway returned to work after his leave. He didn't mention the incident again, filed his reports, kept his head down, but he couldn't shake the memory of those burning figures. The woman pressing her hand against empty air, the screaming that wasn't sound but something felt in his bones. 3 weeks later, corporate offered him early retirement. Generous severance package, full benefits. All he had to do was sign paperwork agreeing never to discuss the incident publicly. He signed, took the money, walked away from 19 years in aviation disposal. But before he left, he made copies of everything. The incident reports, the photographs of handprints on the observation window, temperature logs showing anomalies during the burn, witness statements before they were revised. He put it all on a secure drive and locked it in a safe deposit box. Because someday, someone else will see what he saw. Someone else will watch burning figures move through a furnace where nothing should survive. And when they start questioning their sanity, searching for answers, Holloway wants them to know they're not alone. That it happened before, that it's real. The aircraft that became Flight 747 is gone now, reduced to ash and recycled metal. But sometimes Holloway wonders if cremation really destroys everything, if fire truly purges all traces of what came before, or if some things remain, some echoes, some shadows that burn without being consumed, that move without being alive, that scream without making sound. He thinks about the 17 passengers who died aboard that aircraft, wonders if they somehow stayed behind, bound to the metal and plastic and wiring, trapped in their final journey. And when the aircraft itself faced destruction, when flames consumed the fuselage, did they experience death again? Did they feel the fire? Did they scream? Or is something still screaming inside the ashes and scrap metal that used to be Flight 747, now distributed across salvage yards and recycling centers, mixed into new aircraft, carrying passengers who will never know they're flying in planes built partially from the remains of something haunted? Holloway doesn't fly anymore. When friends ask why, he says he's seen too much of how aircraft are built and maintained, that familiarity breeds caution. But the truth is simpler and darker. He knows what aircraft can retain, what they can remember, what they carry with them long after passengers disembark. And he knows that somewhere, right now, another disposal facility is preparing another retired aircraft for cremation. Another technician will monitor the temperature gauges. Another observation window will show flames consuming metal. And maybe, just maybe, that technician will see shadows moving where nothing should exist. Figures walking through fire. Passengers who never left their seats. What will they do when that happens? Will they sound the alarm? Will they hit emergency shutdown? Will they faint like Holloway did, overwhelmed by screaming that exists outside normal sound? Or will they convince themselves it was heat distortion, smoke, imagination, anything except the truth? Because the truth is uncomfortable. The truth suggests that aircraft are more than machines, that they absorb something from every passenger, every flight, every life that passes through them. And when those machines are destroyed, that absorbed energy doesn't simply vanish. It manifests, it moves, it burns. Sarah Klein left the facility 2 months after the incident. She never spoke about what she saw. But Holloway heard she transferred to a desk job, something far from active disposal operations. Marcus Chen still works there, monitoring emissions and temperature gauges. He swears he doesn't remember seeing anything unusual. Heat distortion, he says. Tricks of light and smoke, nothing more. But Holloway knows better. He has the photographs, the handprints burned into heat-resistant glass, the temperature anomalies, the witness statements before they were sanitized. He has proof that something happened, even if he can't explain what. Sometimes he considers going public, posting the evidence online, forcing the aviation industry to acknowledge what happens during aircraft cremation. But he knows how that story ends. Discredited, labeled a conspiracy theorist, written off as someone who cracked under pressure. So the evidence stays locked away, waiting, preserved for whoever comes next. Because there will be someone next. There's always someone next. The facility continues operations. Aircraft arrive, aircraft burn. Ashes get hauled away. The cycle continues. And sometimes, if you look closely through the observation window at just the right moment, you might see something that shouldn't be there. A shadow, a shape, a figure moving through flames that should consume everything. Most people look away, convince themselves they imagined it. That's the smart choice, the safe choice, the career-preserving choice. But a few people keep looking, keep watching, keep wondering. Those are the people Holloway hopes will find his evidence someday. The ones brave enough or foolish enough to ask the questions everyone else ignores. What really happens when an aircraft dies? Where does all that accumulated energy go? All those millions of passenger miles, all that fear during turbulence, all that relief at landing, all those final moments before death? Does it simply dissipate? Or does it remain, bound to the physical structure, waiting for one last journey through fire? Holloway doesn't have answers. He only has what he saw. Burning figures moving through a furnace. A woman's hand pressed against nothing. Screaming. That wasn't sound, but something deeper, something primal, something that spoke directly to whatever part of us recognizes when death is near. And he has one more piece of information he's never shared with anyone. Something he discovered 3 days before his retirement, buried in maintenance logs nobody else bothered to read. The aircraft that became Flight 747 wasn't scheduled for cremation. Corporate had approved it for parts reclamation. The engines were still good. Avionics could be refurbished. Seats could be cleaned and resold. There was no reason to destroy the entire aircraft. But someone changed the order, manually, overriding the original decision, sending the aircraft directly to Holloway's facility for immediate cremation. No parts recovery, no salvage operation. Just burn it, turn it to ash, make it disappear. Holloway traced the order back as far as he could. It originated from a division of corporate he'd never heard of, Acquisitions and Closure. No phone number, no physical address, just a department name and an authorization code. He tried calling corporate to ask about it, was transferred 7 times. Nobody knew anything about acquisitions and closure. Nobody could explain why the cremation order was changed. Eventually, someone suggested he stop asking questions for his own good. So he did, took his retirement package, signed the non-disclosure agreement, walked away. But he thinks about that unauthorized order, wonders who gave it, wonders why. Wonders if somewhere in corporate headquarters, someone tracks aircraft that accumulate too many deaths, too many unexplained failures, too many incidents that can't be explained by mechanical failure alone. And when an aircraft crosses some invisible threshold, some point where it becomes more liability than asset, that someone issues an order, burn it, destroy the evidence, make sure nothing survives. Except things did survive. The shadows, the screaming, the handprints. Whatever remained of those 17 passengers refused to be cremated, refused to disappear quietly. They stayed visible just long enough for 3 witnesses to see them, just long enough to prove that some things can't be destroyed, even by fire. What you do with this information is up to you. Maybe you'll dismiss it as the delusions of a man who cracked under pressure. Maybe you'll convince yourself that heat distortion explains everything. That's certainly easier than accepting the alternative. Or maybe you'll remember this story the next time you fly. When you board an aircraft that's been in service for decades. When you sit in a seat where someone might have died years ago. When you hear strange sounds in the fuselage or feel inexplicable cold spots despite the cabin temperature. When the flight crew exchanges glances that suggest they've heard or seen things they can't explain. Maybe then you'll wonder what the aircraft remembers, what it carries with it. What will happen when its service life ends and it rolls into a cremation facility somewhere, ready to be reduced to ash and scrap metal? Will technicians see shadows moving through the flames? Will someone faint? Will handprints appear on heat-resistant glass? Will anyone believe them when they report what they saw? Or will corporate bury it like always, issue denials, revise statements, offer early retirement packages, keep the system running smoothly, because public confidence in aviation must be maintained at all costs. The truth doesn't matter as much as the appearance of normalcy. That's what Holloway learned. That's what broke him. Not what he saw in the furnace, but what he learned afterward. That everyone in positions of authority already knew. That similar incidents happen regularly. That protocols exist specifically to manage these situations. That he was neither the first nor the last person to watch burning figures move through flames that should consume everything. The system protects itself. Questions get answered with transfers and terminations. Evidence gets archived and forgotten. Witnesses get discredited or compensated into silence. And the aircraft keep flying, keep carrying passengers, keep accumulating whatever energy or memory or spiritual residue makes them more than just machines, until someday they burn, and someone sees what Holloway saw, and the cycle continues. What would you do in that situation? Would you sound the alarm, knowing you'll be labeled unstable? Would you document everything, despite the threat to your career? Or would you look away, accept the easy explanation, convince yourself it was nothing? Do you think what Holloway witnessed was mechanical malfunction, mass hallucination, or something far worse? Something that suggests our aircraft carry more than passengers and cargo. That they accumulate the lives and deaths of everyone who passes through them, retaining it all until the final journey into fire reveals what should have stayed hidden? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more aviation investigations that the industry doesn't want exposed. Because these stories exist, these incidents happen, and someone needs to document them before they're all buried under non-disclosure agreements and corporate denials.